The Roman Empire didn't fall to barbarians. It fell the moment its citizens stopped asking dangerous questions. And right now, as you scroll through endless distractions, the same invisible collapse is happening inside your mind. We've been taught that great civilizations crumble because of wars, plagues, or economic disasters, but history whispers a darker truth. Every empire that ever rose and fell shared one fatal symptom before the end. Thinking became too uncomfortable, so they simply stopped doing it. Look around you. We live in an age of unprecedented access to information. Libraries that would make ancient scholars weep with envy fit in our pockets. Yet something strange is happening. Despite all this knowledge at our fingertips, we've become allergic to ideas that challenge us. We've built invisible walls around our minds, not to protect ourselves from enemies, but to shield ourselves from the discomfort of genuine thought. The ancient Greeks had a word for this intellectual courage: parrhesia. It meant speaking truth even when truth was dangerous. Socrates drank hemlock because he refused to stop asking questions that made powerful people uncomfortable. He understood something we've forgotten. A society that punishes difficult thinking is a society signing its own death warrant. Consider the pattern throughout history. The Ming Dynasty didn't collapse because of foreign invasion. It collapsed because its bureaucracy became so rigid, so allergic to new ideas, that innovation became a crime. The Soviet Union didn't fall because capitalism was superior. It fell because questioning the party line became more dangerous than questioning reality itself. When a civilization makes comfort more important than truth, that civilization is already dying. It just doesn't know it yet. And here's what troubles me most. We're not being forced into intellectual conformity by tyrants or censors. We're choosing it. We're curating our feeds to show us only what we already believe. We're unfollowing anyone who challenges our worldview. We're building our own prisons, brick by comfortable brick, and calling it freedom. The human brain is designed to avoid pain. This is basic neuroscience. When we encounter an idea that contradicts our beliefs, our amygdala fires the same warning signals it would fire if we were facing a physical threat. Disagreement literally feels like danger. But here's the paradox. The very mechanism that kept our ancestors alive on the savannah is now killing our capacity for growth. What protected us from lions is now protecting us from truth. But what happens to a mind that never experiences intellectual discomfort? Think about your muscles for a moment. If you never lift anything heavy, if you never push against resistance, your muscles atrophy. They weaken. They become unable to perform even basic functions. Your mind works the same way. Every time you avoid a challenging idea, every time you dismiss a perspective without genuinely considering it, you're letting your intellectual muscles waste away. And a society full of people with atrophied minds is a society that cannot solve problems. It can only repeat comfortable lies until those lies destroy it. I see this everywhere now. People don't debate ideas anymore. They perform outrage. They don't seek understanding, they seek validation. Social media has become a machine for manufacturing intellectual comfort, serving us an endless buffet of opinions we already hold, wrapped in the illusion of information. If this pattern feels familiar to you, if you've ever caught yourself avoiding a conversation because you knew it might challenge you, imagine what comes next in this journey. Subscribe now, because what I'm about to share could change how you see everything. There's something deeply human about wanting to belong. We're tribal creatures. For hundreds of thousands of years, being cast out from the group meant death, so our brains evolved to prioritize social acceptance over almost everything else, including truth, including growth, including our own intellectual integrity. I think about this when I watch people twist themselves into knots to avoid admitting they might be wrong. It's not stupidity. It's survival instinct misfiring in the modern world. Our ancestors needed tribal acceptance to survive. We don't. But try telling that to the ancient circuitry in your brain stem. Here's a story that haunts me. In the years before the 2008 financial crisis, there were analysts who saw the collapse coming. They had the data. They understood the mathematics of the housing bubble, but when they tried to warn their colleagues, they were ignored. mocked, or fired, not because their analysis was wrong, but because it was uncomfortable. It challenged the narrative that everyone had invested in, emotionally and financially. The comfort of the group consensus was more valuable than the truth, and we all know how that ended. This happens in families too. We avoid certain topics at dinner. We let lies stand unchallenged to keep the peace. We watch people we love make terrible decisions and say nothing because the conversation would be too uncomfortable. And in doing so, we participate in a kind of collective decay, a slow erosion of our ability to face reality together. The philosopher Kierkegaard wrote about something he called the tranquilization by the trivial. He saw it in his own time, the tendency to fill life with distractions and diversions to avoid the fundamental questions of existence. What am I doing with my life? What do I actually believe? Am I living authentically or just performing a role that others assign to me? These questions are uncomfortable, so we scroll, we binge, we consume, anything to avoid the silence where those questions live. But here's what I've learned, and this is the part where everything shifts. Discomfort is not the enemy. Discomfort is the doorway. Every meaningful transformation in human history came from someone willing to sit with uncomfortable thoughts. Darwin spent decades wrestling with the implications of evolution, knowing it would overturn everything. Einstein imagined riding on a beam of light, a thought experiment so strange it seemed absurd, and it rewrote physics. The greatest breakthroughs come not from comfortable minds, but from minds willing to endure the friction of challenging their own assumptions. The Stoics understood this 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, would wake before dawn to write about his own weaknesses, his own failures, his own capacity for self-deception. He didn't do this because it felt good. He did it because he knew that the unexamined life leads to ruin, not just personal ruin, but the ruin of everything you're responsible for. So how do we rebuild this capacity for difficult thinking? It starts with something deceptively simple. You have to become suspicious of your own certainty. Every time you feel absolutely sure about something, that's exactly when you should pause and ask yourself, what would it take to change my mind? If you can't answer that question, you're not holding a belief. The belief is holding you. Next, seek out disagreement deliberately. Not the cartoon version of disagreement that social media serves up, designed to make you feel superior. Real disagreement. Find the smartest people who hold positions you reject and try to understand why they believe what they believe, not to defeat them, to understand them. You might discover that the world is more complicated than your current map suggests. Practice what the Buddhists call beginner's mind. Approach familiar topics as if you're encountering them for the first time. The expert's mind is closed. It already knows. The beginner's mind is open, curious, willing to be surprised. The greatest thinkers in history maintained this quality of openness even after decades of study. Einstein said he had no special talents, only passionate curiosity. That curiosity kept his mind alive when others had calcified into comfortable certainty. But there's a secret still deeper that few are willing to face. The collapse of civilizations isn't something that happens out there, in history books and ancient ruins. It happens in here, in the space between your ears, every time you choose comfort over truth. Every civilization is just a collection of individual minds. When enough minds choose intellectual comfort, the civilization crumbles, not from external attack, but from internal rot. This means the fate of everything you care about, your family, your community, your society, depends on whether enough people are willing to do the difficult work of thinking, the uncomfortable work, the work that feels like friction and resistance, and sometimes even pain. The philosopher Nietzsche wrote that the snake which cannot shed its skin must die. Civilizations are the same. A culture that cannot shed its outdated beliefs, that cannot tolerate the discomfort of growth and change, is a culture that has already begun to die, and we shed those old skins through difficult thinking, through the willingness to question what we thought we knew. Here's the truth that ties everything together. You are not separate from civilization. You are civilization. Every thought you think, every question you ask or avoid, every moment of intellectual courage or cowardice ripples outward into the collective mind of humanity. When you choose to sit with an uncomfortable idea instead of dismissing it, you strengthen not just yourself, but the fabric of human thought itself. The collapse doesn't have to happen. It's not inevitable, but preventing it requires something from each of us. It requires the courage to think when thinking hurts, to question when questioning is unpopular, to remain curious when certainty would be so much easier. Socrates said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." But I'd go further. The unexamined civilization is not capable of surviving. Every empire that fell first in the minds of its citizens. They stopped thinking, and thinking stopped protecting them from reality. So here's my challenge to you. Today, find one belief you hold and examine it honestly, not to defend it. Not to prove you were right all along, but to genuinely ask, is this still true? Does this still serve? The discomfort you feel in that moment is the feeling of your mind coming back to life. The civilization we save might just begin with the thoughts we're brave enough to think. If this message resonated with you, I need you to do something right now. Hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment sharing a belief you're willing to examine. And most importantly, share this with someone who needs to hear it, because this work cannot be done alone. We think together, or we fall apart together. The choice, as it always has been, is ours.